Dun, dun. Okay, we are live. We are officially live. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, I've been feeling like, just deepening into like Tantra and kind of just the tantric path of Buddhism and reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead and stuff, and just like looking at my chart and just feeling into the themes that are current in my life. Like, I
Mhm.
feel like I really need to deepen into expressing this sex, life, death, rebirth kind of situation. So I've been
The
thinking,
essence of the Scorpio, you mean?
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Um, and the Scorpio is like very much it's in my seventh house, which is the mirrored self of Libra. So like this idea of the camera mirroring too is like such a big symbol for me. So I'm just looking forward to like deepening into my own personal expression, because right now I'm really just like, showing up for other people and photographing their vision. And I'm in
Right. Through
and
work, you mean through work photography. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, right, but you really do sort of you have to have your skill set and your vision and your inspiration to be able to do that for other people. But then when you're there in the moment, you're not thinking anything about you. You're just like a medium to capture them. Like you're just glued to the viewfinder and you're using your composition skills, your technique, your lighting skills, and all the things that you know that you can bring to your personal work for them and doing what they need you to do. It's a service job. It's a service job. And I mean, you wouldn't be good at it if you didn't do all that other work for yourself,
True.
which is kind of the hard thing is like you have to do all that, visual um exercising and staying in shape and, technical stuff with photography. Um, but you want to do your a personal body of work.
Yes. Yeah. I'm definitely ready to like deepen in. And I was feeling, even since last we talked, I was like, okay, well, maybe I have to do it on 4x5 to take it seriously. But I don't know if that's true, man. And I feel like that's kind of standing in the way of me making this work. And so like I've been shooting 35 millimeter my whole life. Like, why wouldn't I just focus on continuing to shoot that? And if it feels right at some point, once I'm back in the practice, like of inviting the 4x5 in, like that would be fine. But to count on that and like let that kind of stand in the way, I think is a part of my self-saboteur.
So I feel very strongly that no medium should be belittled or snobbed. Like no medium is higher than another medium. People, you have to sort of um, go. I think you need to be productive and prolific, and I encourage people to use whatever tools they have around them, and you can switch tools. Like, for me over the years, I would use an iPhone photo, print it out and paint it as well as a view camera photo. I mean, and at the end of the day, the quality of the work and the quality of the self-expression, the power of the imagery is what is important, and not so much how you made it. And I feel very strongly about that. um, I don't think one is better or worse, and I don't think it's higher or lower. I think it's really how you are able to find your voice and use your voice that's comfortable for you. And I
I
love the idea of 35 millimeter. I mean, I even, but, and the view camera can be plugged in. I mean, you could use it for certain shoots that you're going to have the time and the patience and the energy to handle the camera. You know, um,
I
you
think
know,
that there's the pieces too that I included in the visual culture folder that are mine, that are like most aligned with what I feel like I want my work to look like. I just included like 4 pieces. They're digital, like one of them is 35 millimeter, but the other 3 are digital and they're just printed and painted. And like I feel like even if I was just to hone in on that skill, I'm still hitting on what it is I want my work to look like.
I think that's
So
the most important thing for you right now, from what I hear you say. And I also think that you need to give yourself more credit where credit is due, that you are experienced and you are technically savvy and you are capable of handling digital equipment, 35 millimeter view camera, pinhole, darkroom. I mean, we forget in a way how many skills we have and sort of all the things that we bring to the table. So as we're forgetting that, we're also like overwhelming ourselves between that balance of content, intention, creativity, and technical expertise, right? And then snobbery or like judgment. right? So I'm just kind of like putting those together, like criticism. So rather than just being like, oh my God, I'm rocking this with my 35 millimeter, you're kind of going, oh, I should be doing this. It's not good enough. Like, this isn't good enough. This isn't enough. And I think all of those, I mean, I always like to say, like, those feelings are real. I mean, I have them every day. Like, oh, I'm not getting this done fast enough, and I'm not, making this big enough, and I'm not cohesive enough, and these aren't similar enough. But then I also have to be like, this is what, I have to honor myself, honor my spirit, honor my creative energy, and say, this is what I got done today. Like, this is what I felt like doing. And for me too, like, I started painting photos with like watercolors, and I was like, oh my God, like, that's not wet, like, that's not encaustic, that's not hard, why are you doing these watercolors? But for whatever reason, I enjoyed it, and the work is really good. And just recently someone was like, oh, it just totally matches your vision. And I was like, oh shit, oh, it does? Like, oh my God, like, of course it does, because we are ultimately gonna make work, that looks like our work. I mean, I think we're both, you're definitely a developed visionary, you're a professional, right? And I think your desire now is to kind of make something um like finished. Like when I did the female fairy tale, and how old are you now? Are you 30?
34.
Okay. So basically the female fairy tale was my 30 to 40. So it was like the most significant becoming of like what I needed to know as a woman, right? So it was like kind of like all of that, like youth and teenage and developmental and maturing was kind of like over, right? And now is really becoming like the full version of my female self, like from 30 to 40. And that's when I did the female fairy tale. And the best thing about that, and I mean, you knew me really well when I was doing that, was I literally wrote a script. So I wrote a script. I wrote just a brainstorm of all of my key emotions and learning points. And I just literally wrote, like, wait, I have to close this door for a second. They're like, everyone's working on their houses, which is great. Work on your house quietly. So I literally just brainstormed all of these things that I wanted to cover in these photographs. And I really didn't know exactly how I was going to do it, but it just unfolded. So the list was long. It was like, and it was just like love, hate, loss, depression, anxiety, like my physical relationship, like pregnancy, divorce, separation, loneliness, even like caregiving, right? Like homemaking, like all these things that I'm like knew I was doing, and really was accepting and acknowledging for myself that these are the things that all women do, right? And this is like the thread. And then I found that dress, right? So then it was like, okay, so I was going to photograph all these different women in the same dress, and each shoot was going to have a specific emotion, right? So not only did it help me sort of construct each shoot and feel purposeful in the shoot because I had it, but then also with the editing, it helped me a lot be like, oh yeah, this was the theme for the day that I tried to achieve, and this is the best image that I feel matches that. Right? So because there's so many layers in photography, there's so many layers from like oh, I'm going to go take pictures to like how you're going to, yeah, what camera, who's going to be there, where you're going, what you're trying to say, right? So every photographer kind of comes at this sort of conundrum of elements, this sort of molecule of or of all of these like parts that come together in different ways with different specifics. And that's why we can all do what we do and make it our own, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm like feeling so much rising. I'm like holding back most of just like, well, it feels like excitement, but there's also this like interesting fear too, because I don't know if I don't know, did you ever experience that? Like when you know that you're onto something, it's just like fuck, like, oh my God, like,
It
I
makes
don't
me
know.
feel grounded though. Yeah, it's scary and intimidating, but it makes me feel grounded, because like even right now, like I know that I've just kind of been like whatever and COVID, whatever, and trying to make money, whatever. But there's gonna come a point in like another month where I'm gonna be like, no, no, you're doing like I'm gonna like put myself in a box. I'm gonna like, you know, put the fences up and close the gate and be like, no, you're doing this. And part of what I'm doing is really cleaning up a little bit and getting rid of stuff that I just don't need anymore. My initial idea for this year and my work got interrupted because of COVID and I lost a job. So, I was working at Camden County Community College and they hired me to be the lab manager, which was going to be a great job for me. I was basically going to be in charge of all the digital equipment, the cameras, the scanners, the computers, and if they were if they made a dark room the dark room because they tore down the old dark room. But like nobody's going to school right now in person. So but I was basically there for 3 months, January, February, March, before COVID happened, scanning my 4x5 stuff, which most of it hasn't seen the light of day. So I would still say 90% of the work that I've done in the last 25 years hasn't ever even been printed or anything. So that's like really where what I was gonna do. But then I was like, I'm not doing that, because I don't have that equipment at home and I don't have that time. My time is gone to other places. So I'm gonna work on some lighter work that's easier for me. So there is to this thing that you have to be aware of with your creative self, right? This whole being of you, outside of wife and caregiver and money maker and meal preparer and social director and all these parts of our lives that are and lover, like all these parts of our female life that we do every day that we probably don't even acknowledge. But there's this part of your creative self too is like, oh, I just want to relax and take it easy and express myself. And then there's this other part of you that was like, no, you're gonna be like, you need to put a book together. You need to, like you said, legacy work. You need to focus. You need to fucking dig deeper. You need to produce more. You need to be cohesive. You need 20 images that match. So these things or those things come from a place, right? And then that other like, oh, I just want to like go out with my camera and just do whatever, like, right? So there's always like that in me too. Like I don't, want to be direct, and I don't want to be directed. I don't want pressure, right? So
Yeah,
so you
it's kind of interesting to see the ways that, I mean, it's kind of like the relationship between the masculine and the feminine within us though, because it's like without a container, like my feminine will literally just not ever create, like it will create, it's always creating, but like
right, but
it,
it's not created cohesively where you're like, this is connected to this and this is building this. And right. So maybe that is a masculine feminine thing, or it's just, or it's like, it's almost like low and high, low and high, right? Like an outsider artist is creating because they are just doing it. Like they're just doing it. Like it's just how they're passing the time. And then the highly educated sophisticated artist is like talking about you know philosophy and spirituality and Buddhism and intention and visual vocabulary and intellectualizing the process and the elements of the art. I mean, I even just randomly last night watched an IGTV video, and you should probably watch it too. It's about Catherine Edelman Gallery, but because of COVID, a lot of galleries have gone online. So it's really this girl talking about Shane Park Harrison. They're like a couple who make all these pictures, and you should totally look at their pictures. But when those hoity-toity people talk about art, it's so intellectual, and I love that. I mean, I love that when I read, one of my favorite painters. Actually, I should show you this guy's painting because I saw him at a show and it just like blew my mind. It really changed my view on working with flowers because he worked with some dead flowers and he did these paintings and he combined these images. They're very simple, and yet he was able to take that they were very beautiful. I mean, very beautiful. But he was able to take this sort of simplicity, simple, in my mind, simple setup and simple concept into this really deep philosophical, intellectual, life and death, you know, um, experience. Where it's like, okay, wait. So that's when you really have got something where you're taking something that's like what I call ease, the easy, and yet it is totally connected to like the super complicated intellectualism that you want the art to have. So how does like that happen when it's like just easy, just right there in front of you, like just your friends and family, just your girlfriends, just like your dead birds you're finding, just your environment, and you're just photographing it and getting the lighting and the feeling, and then you're putting those pictures together and kaboom, they magnify just automatically into
Mm.
incredibleness, like into everything you want. Um, so I think of that sometimes about that as being like luck. I think, trial and error, practice, 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 just, um,
I think there's
waking up
also
and working, waking up and working on it.
Mhm. There's also like I think something to be spoken, and I see this in you, and I see it in Joe a lot too, of just that like prolific nature, where it's like there like it is being expressed through us no matter what, and the more that we create, the more that it becomes clear as to what it is.
Right.
Um, and so I think that they're exactly like you're saying, like waking up and just working, and just like continuing to like show up to this like altar almost of like your creation.
Right. I do think, um, and and I do think for you, I think a part of what you're a lot like me, and you've split yourself up into so many things that interest you that are pulling you.
Mhm.
For me, it's been like teaching and then teaching workshops and teaching children and then, shooting weddings and then working on waxwork, but sometimes I think of myself as like a center of a circle of things dancing around me, and I'm really happy and everything's dancing around me, and I'm like, touching them as they're dancing around me. And sometimes I think like I just want to like lay down flat in the middle of the circle and like disappear because I'm totally overwhelmed and I don't feel like any of them are treating me well enough. And so the psychology of being that um fractured is good and bad. I mean, I definitely think that you do it and I do it and a lot of people do it. But then I think of like my friend Elizabeth Messina, who's never fractured, never split herself. She's like one thing only, and that's it. One style, one color palette, one camera. And you're like, what the, you know, So, and I admire that. I'm like, and I am jealous of it. And I'm, you know, like, how, and I love it. I respect it. And all this, but I'm like, that's just not me. Like, that's just not me. So again, it's like knowing yourself, right? Reining in your vision, and then the discipline, right? So the discipline, I've been good, always been good at that. I still think I overcomplicate things in my schedule in my life in general. I just overcomplicate things. So I think that that's part of my being 50 is to really start to think about putting myself first for the first time in life of a long time, many years, and simplifying.
Hmm. That's
Which is
exciting.
well, yeah, but it's scary because I'm used to chaos and frenzy and running and doing things for short periods of time and then just jumping like a frog, like jump, 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 right? And so that keeps it right. So I think maybe you're describing wanting to stop the jumping too, right? Because
Totally. I feel like I need to just like, well, exactly. I need to like focus in on myself and like create work that's truly intentionally expressing who I am on this planet right now and what I'm feeling, and kind of those like storylines and archetypes that exist within me that like want a voice, and
right. So should we read your thing?
yeah, sure.
Should we read your thing? All right, I'm gonna go. So let me see if I can get it. I'm gonna go to screenshot. I think you sent it to my Google, right? I
Yeah,
love Google.
I know it's so helpful.
Okay, let me see. So I wonder if you sent. Did you send it
It's
to?
right there. It's visual
Right here. I
culture.
see it. Oh, I see it. I'll see it. Okay.
So yeah, I think we said 5 artists that inspired me, and then I found a poem too that like
God,
has just been speaking to me a lot.
do you just love this?
Yeah,
I love her.
she's
So
so
actually, you know what's really interesting is I actually just started following her on Facebook, and she is, oh my God, you're gonna fucking trip out. You have to look this up. She is basically created a vocab word for, like, I would say your style, my style, her style, Deborah Turbeville. She's creating like a genre, a name for it. So wait, we can either look it up together or you can look it up. We can talk about it next time, or we can both look it up. But check out her Facebook page, because I was just quickly like glancing through it, and I think it's like goth fashion, or I don't know, something. She definitely named it. Um,
cool.
yeah. Oh, that one's really cool. That's so you. That's like, is that yours?
No, I know, but thank you.
Are these still all hers?
No, these are Irina Ionesca.
Oh my God. I remember when I did my skull stuff, I used to go to this, it was called the Bone Room in Berkeley, and I would rent a bone. I would rent a bone a week.
They
I would
rent
go and give
those.
them like, yeah, and they would let me take them home. I would shoot with them for like a week. I should pull out those pictures. They're like, yeah, it was
I would
called
love
the
to see
Bone
those.
Room. Yeah, it was just, and I would just go there, and whatever bone was like interested in me at the time. But I had a human skull from a week. Somebody's. Oh my God, I was like, I think I took this picture. Wow. Oh, I
And
love
this is
that one.
Jan Sadek.
Yeah, I know. He's a really interesting character.
Yeah, I'm like almost, yeah, like I'm almost like, what do I have family related to him? Because his story sounds so much like my like lineage story of just the storylines, because I know he like lost everything and he's one of the most like recreated artists supposedly,
He
just
was
based on
kind
like,
of like a closet artist too. I mean, he was kind of like underground at the time.
and he like lost everything in his divorce, I guess. Like he
Uh,
doesn't have the rights to any of his work.
oh shit. Oh. Do you know Paul Kava's work?
Uh-uh.
Oh, you should look at his work too. Is this a Joseph Cornell box?
These 3 pieces are by Penny Slinger.
Uh-huh.
She's like been really influential to me lately, because she really ties in a lot of the like tantric concepts and
This is interesting too. Wow, she's made these boxes. Wait, already you said two people that a Penny
Penny Slinger.
Slinger.
Uh-huh.
And what was the other girl's name? Isabel?
Irina
Irina.
Ionesca, I think her last name is. I have to look at how you spell her last name.
Okay.
It's in
And
the file.
you need to look at Paul Kava.
Okay.
Um,
Kava.
Cava. And do you know Jock Sturge's work?
No.
Okay, you should look at Jock Sturge's work too.
Let me find a pen here. Where did my pen go?
Oh, and I have another. Oh, that's great. That's crazy. I like that.
Yeah, that's Penny Slinger too. And I've been doing like a lot of collage work too. So her collage work really inspires me.
Yeah, and you're friends with that girl, the high school dropout. What girl? Is it? she's on Instagram. I think she's in your area. She's a really good collage artist too.
Oh, collage dropout. Yeah, Emily. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
great.
Oh, Emily. Yeah.
Yeah, I just did a collage course with her. I like hired her to teach me on Zoom, which was cool.
Oh, yeah. Emily's cool.
It was Paul Cava,
Paul Kava. Yeah.
Kava, Cava.
CAVA.
And what was the
And
other?
he was really inspired by Walt Whitman. So he basically made a ton of work. And, Walt Whitman was all about like his sexuality. All those poems are about sex.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, you should see the Paul Kava book. It's amazing.
Cool.
Basically put his erotica photos with uh, Walt Whitman's poems.
Ooh.
So that could be interesting too for you also. Now you don't write. You don't write. You write. You
I
don't.
do right. Yeah.
So you could do your writing. I mean, that was kind of like the female fairy tale. Really combined. My writing, drawing, and photographs, but also really like filmmaking too, because I did script it. To specific things, and I was very intentional, and I sought out, I sought out the locations and I picked the model, you know what I mean? It was really um important to me, all those parts that put that together. And then I made a book out of it, so but the book can be a hard copy thing, and then the pictures can be a slideshow. I mean, it can be an installation. And I don't think in any way, I would never tell you that you have to do all like straight photos, or I mean, even all the work that you showed here, like why couldn't you have some that were like this, you know, mixed media? And I mean this, and I'm even thinking about that too for my next show next year, is like I might have like some black and white photos, like lightly hand painted, matted, like or in frames, and I might have some encaustic pieces, and I might have some watercolors,
Yes.
and I might have some collages, right? Like I am not going to be contained to. I'm not going to be contained. I'm just not going to be contained to one thing. I spend too much time. I've spent too much time developing all these parts of myself, and I'm just going to pick the best work that speaks the best to my sensibilities. And this is where you really get to be your own director. It's a little bit of a riskier way. You're not, but you can do it. You can harness a team of a team of creators within yourself to work towards a goal.
Love that.
And that you shouldn't hold yourself back. I mean, again, like encouraging yourself to make work and just make work. I mean, you can edit it later. Like the only time in my life I've like kind of pre-edited was when I did the female fairy tale. I was like, this is the intention. This is, follow these lines, shoot the view camera. That was the strictest I ever was with myself. And there was something really good came out of that. I mean, I definitely felt very empowered by doing that, you know? But that's just a style. There are other styles too to be creative. This is nice. This is cool. I mean, your work has always been very, tapped into spirituality, into voodoo, into, sex, into heaven and hell, right?
Mhm.
Persephone. I mean, Persephone is a huge. I mean, I basically fully think I am Persephone. So, like, maybe there's a goddess that you really identify with. I mean, that's the one for me. So, um, and I like to make images that are split, even split, light and dark. I mean, that was really like 2 years ago, really came out in my work over and over again, where it was like, there was top and bottom, there was life and death, there whatever, black and white, um, fruitful, barren. I mean, whatever words, you could write could even be fun just to write like all the ways to describe those two worlds, right? Top and bottom, sky and ground, you know, dirt and clouds, you know, air and rock. I mean, there's so many, right? Like light and dark, heaven and hell, high and low, um, alive or dead, you know, joy, you know, joy and pain, right? So you could just kind of, and then, you know, you describing both, like, you know, even in an image like this, you know, the flowers represent, you know, life and, you know, fertility for this person, and then, you know, pulled into the dark side, right? All falling, disappearing into darkness, you know, losing an eye, hiding, you know, the horn, like, right? So symbols, right? Symbolism, color palette, suggestive metaphor, androgyny, right? Male, female, right? So, I mean, to me, heaven, hell, light and dark, you know, male, female is another one, right? Right. And two, and hand coloring photos, right? So black and white is sort of like stripping, minimalizing, taking away, depleting, desaturating, all of those things you're taking, you know, abstraction, right? Black and white is abstraction. And then when you're coloring it, you're kind of like bringing it back to life, right? So that's like an interesting sort of metaphor of the process too. Sort of like, you know, I like those ideas about decomposing, destructuring, dissecting, right? Taking away, splitting apart, um, emptying, right? The image in black and white, and then what are you doing to like bring back the life, like, right? So it is sort of ritualistic, that process too. And especially like if you are using digital and you're going from color to black and white and then back to color, like, you know, that's, you know, I mean, spiritually that's a lot of crossing over too, you know, and also using this like crazy digital technology, which is almost like not real. It's like sort of imaginary. It's almost like we're living, you know, in this very unreal world,
Mm.
you know. And then yeah, the stuff like this is just so simple and beautiful. It's so poetic, and these are timeless, you know, Tiff too. Like, right? They're just, and this could be medieval,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Like, so there's always that, and there is something about that black and white, right? And then you also really enjoy the ritual, right? The ritual. I mean, and I stepped into a lot of ritual stuff too with the female fairy tale, where I like burn the dress at the end. So symbolism, right? So the wedding dress became the thread that I could thread this whole story together. And then of course at the end, like you want to walk away from symbolism and have freedom, emotional and spiritual freedom from symbolism, right? Because symbolism is what um holds us down, right? Like, you know, pins us to the ground, you know, puts its hands around our neck, right? Chokes us, restricts us, penalize, you know, punishes us, all of those things, right? Um,
Yeah, I'd never thought about that before, but it is so much the trappings of the mind. Like the symbol is very much just like our projection through the mind, whereas like the spirit is completely free. So
right.
that's awesome. I love that.
Right, and the symbols that we're current, you know, that we currently are attracted to are based on historical, right? So and um, sentimental, you know, religious, um, social, right? I mean, societal.
Hmm.
I mean, and we're seeing, you know, the countries, you know, the people are so divided, and their choices of what they want to believe. I mean, belief systems are, it's phenomenal to me what people can actually believe, or choose to believe. And I mean, I guess in a way, like, oh, fuck it. Yeah, well, that gives me a lot of freedom to believe. I mean, really, you do have a lot of choice of what you want to believe, and what you surround yourself in and focus on and learn about and read about, and, who you follow, and how you spend your time. These are, and that's why that's why art is important, because I think artists were like the note takers, right? So we're like the visual descriptors of what we're doing and what we're seeing people around us doing, and we're storytellers, visual storytellers of belief systems, and we use objects and materials to describe these things. So, and a lot of romance. There's a lot of romance. These pictures. I mean, these are the pictures that Jamie Gordon likes to look at every day. And she's always just really intentionally, wanting to not live in the real world, but to live in this other world, this other world. And so where where do you get the key to that world? Like, where does that come from? You have it, right? You have in you. See, I have in me this other world, and does it come from the flowers? Do the flowers talk to me? Do animals talk to me? Like, yeah, I think they do. So who is talking to me? Like, when I'm standing in my studio and I'm painting, and I see these things, and these things come out, and I can tell these, where is that source of that imagination? Is that my soul? Is that, you know nature's soul? you know these are, I mean, I don't know that I know the answers to these questions, but I believe in them. I believe that I have a very, very, very powerful imagination, and that's a gift. I'm gifted. It makes other aspects of my life very challenging, but pretty good in the collage and painting world.
Mm.
So knowing yourself too, knowing your abilities is a very important part of also picking a project, right? And it is a little bit of like internal tricking that you get these answers from yourself, right? Because it's not like, you know, paying a parking ticket. It's not like going to the grocery store. It's not that kind of like three dimensional tangible reality we're talking about. It's these other components, that exist possibly even, outside or behind the door, the door that you have the key to, like whatever that is that you're unlocking. But all these things come into play when you're living the creative life and you're creating.
Mhm.
So all the images that you showed me, like, yeah, I mean, I love them all. I've thought about them all. So you need to ask yourself more specific questions, I think, at this point. Like, maybe you already have all the photos you need. Maybe you already have all the photos you need.
I mean, maybe, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like I want to create new work from where I'm standing today because I'm
Okay.
so much different. I mean, the ones that I just showed you are along the line, but those are the like through all of the external processing I've done for other people and all of the, technical development and all of that stuff. It's been like so external. And then I touch into these places and I'm like, this is it. This is it. This is it. So I feel like I'm like I've been in my past referring to what it is, but I feel like I haven't committed to it.
Right.
That makes sense.
Okay. So one of the things that really allowed me to commit to it was totally accidental. What was literally like finding that dress. The other thing that really brought that whole female fairy tale thing together was it was kind of like my real life and my imaginary life could just like exist together in that arena of that dress, like so the dress became the symbol that I could thread through all of those photos. So you need to maybe find, and again, it kind of reminds me of what I was saying about the key that unlocks the door. So like a lot of us find like we might have very high intelligences in some way, or we might be extremely talented, or we might have certain skill sets. But like even take my cousin Josh for a second, like super highly intelligent person. He discovered that he could play chess. Like when he was a little kid, he could play. And then so it was like chess was the key, right? And really like that like just blew his life up because he could like apply himself to that and then compete and then and then it was made into a movie, and then it's like the whole life story, it just kind of like it just rolls and keeps rolling. So it's like feminism, it's romanticism, it's like philosophy and magic and sorcery and faith and beauty, right? And black and white and fantasy, right? I mean, at least 10 things right off the top of my head, I know that you want to describe. Okay. Also, you keep mentioning this thing about time. You keep mentioning this now, like now time, like time. So I need you to you got to figure out what does that mean? Like, is that like the fucking clock? Is that like the calendar? Is that the clock? Is that just like, uh, is it like the bread is baked? Like it's like, what does this mean? Like, like the popcorn's popping. Like, what does this mean? Like, you know what I mean? Is it just like, maybe it is too, just like that you have the space, right? Like maybe it's just this opening where this is the next 6 months, from November 2020 to March 2021, you want to make this work. I mean, you have to figure out what this is about time for you. Um, I mean, I had to, math was also part of my thing where it was like, I wanted, you know, 30 to 40. I wanted that the 10 years. Like I did the In My Body show. I wanted that 10-year, like the female fairy tale. Like I wanted it to be about that. Right. So maybe yours is like about your 20s. Maybe this work is about things that have already happened to you. And now you want to process them for real because you were in them then and they were traumatic and they were exciting and they were challenging and they were emotional. And now you're not as challenged. You're not as on the edge. You're not as schizophrenic, or you're not psychotic. So maybe you're past processing in a way. I don't think you're future processing, and a lot of the images that you showed me also represent nostalgia, right? So there's something about like feminist work and romantic feminine work that's also very tied into nostalgia.
There's also this like this piece that just keeps fucking coming up, and I'm like, okay, where do I create this? And I'm like, well, it has to be created in this home because this it's wild. So before I started school, before I went to the Art Institute, my parents were going to help me pay for college.
Right.
And the first piece of art that I got accepted into a show at Hack before I transferred was a self-portrait that was like mildly sexual, but it was like me expressing myself sexually. And when my parents saw it,
they're like, you're not going to, girl, you're not going to college. If you're going to take pictures like that, you're staying the fuck home. If you're
totally, I wasn't living with them, but my mom basically like completely braided me and told me I was making porn, and then with all support, like they didn't help me pay anything after that. So
oh my god,
so
oh my
this
god,
like
that's crazy.
big riff around being allowed to be here, and now I'm in technically their home, but I feel like I need to create the work in their house to just like almost heal that space within myself that is allowed to express and be seen, and like reveal the truth of like what it means to live and to die.
Hmm. Or yeah, or more just to live, more just to, I don't see, you're not a I mean, you're so about living and living well and living, I mean, the
But
fear
there's also
the, the,
the
the
only
fear of death, it's just being the opposite of life. I just feel like that's that's something that's just even for our it's just the darkness that's always a possibility. But you are so alive and full of life. um I mean, I only think that I only think that in taboo cultural ideals is sex considered, bad or evil. And I sort of feel like for most of us, I mean, I don't know, but you know, shouldn't I mean, yeah, I'm sure there are a ton of people that are still condemning sexuality and sex as evil and dark, but that's just fucking dumb. All right. So, but that's an element that you can always play around with. I mean, of course. And in all those parallels we talked about just a few minutes ago, I mean, you can't have the light without the dark, and you can't have the life without the death. So, they're they're married, so that's also, and also for you, a big thing in your life is this marriage, is marriage itself, and married to a man, and married to parallels, and married to opposites. And so that could be really a theme too. I think you should probably pretty soon start to think about are people who's going to be in the pictures. Like, are you going to do like a Cindy Sherman? Is it you? Are you going to do it? Are you going to do, I mean, you, in my mind, have always been my source, my well for femininity. And I've loved your female friends.
Mhm.
Is it going to be about, maybe you write a list of people that are really important to you to photograph, and you work with each of them, like, because there is this thing about working with others, like that mirror, like that poem, like, this recognition, of your own life through others' relationships, and your relationship to them, and what you psychically and intuitively are sharing. And I think, okay, so you're definitely going to create the work in the house. I mean, you're going to be living there. um is it a narrative? Like, is it a collection? Is it a story? is
Well,
it a,
initially
is it
when
a time? Is it like 30 days of every day? Like, you have to design the plan, you have to write the script. So the photography director, you have to basically direct and produce now, right? So you kind of have to do those three things. You have to sort of really say what it is, right? And I don't think you need to waste any more time in tapping into everything we know, that you already know. You're so fucking smart. I mean, so much. You have to really trust your intuition, and your imagination, and your creative ability, right? So it's actually easier. Like, for me, it's a lot easier for me just to make a schedule, call the models, book the shit, right? Do the work, right? So whether you pick one day a week you're going to work on this, or two half days you're going to work on this, look at the fucking calendar, and block out the shooting time, and give yourself as start shooting, and then make a binder. Sometimes just doing like the very like this is my binder, this is my binder for my new project. Name it, you know name it, even if it's a working title. Duncan makes these movies all the time. Like, when Shyamalan made Servant, it had like a horrible working title. Even forget what it was, but like, I don't know, Dark Water. It was like just a dumb working title, and then it became Servant. um, so that's a good place to start, is a working title. If I was going to give you, I mean, I need to go in about 10 minutes, but if I was going to give you your next assignments, I would say a working title, and the thread. What is the thread? So if you're, even Silence of the Lambs, right? You're building a bodysuit, right? And even in that movie, that was the intention, right, of the movie, was that he was going to kill these women and make the suit. But think of all the other things that came into play in that movie, you know? the life cycle, androgyny, evil, deception, manipulation, seduction, right?
Mhm.
All these romance, hatred, violence, rape, cannibal, like, and all of that. But he had a goal. What was the goal? Make a fucking dress, like, right, and make a bodysuit. So it's so interesting to me how like a simple goal can have you know, a universe, an infinite universe of meanings surrounding it. And like Sally Mann, I always really admire too because she can take a topic, right? So she took her children, then she took a science lab, then she took like her husband's illness, right? So she take a topic and then she'll just start making photographs, you know, about that, right? And then she edits them in a way that they speak to all of those other beliefs and interests that she has. Do you see how that works?
Mhm.
So like you could pick a topic. Your topic could be trees. Your topic could be dresses. Your topic could be nudes. Your top, right? Or you can use like dresses, nudes, and you know what I mean? Like, because I do see you, wanting to be out in nature, wanting to use that sort of gothy fashion, wanting to use women, wanting to use birds, right? So I don't see why you can't use all of those things that you like,
Mhm.
but you got to try to figure out. You got to try to figure out how they're going to thread together.
Well, I think that might be a good way too with this concept of time and like you saying like maybe the work has already been created. It's like, can I look back through my work? So maybe I'm going to look back through my work and kind of just start to like see what the thread has been up until now. Do you think that that's like a kind of good way to see what it is I've been doing, or do you think it should just trust my intuition moving forward?
Um, I deal with this for myself all the time, and I think it's like, oh, it's me, it's been me, it's me. I did it. How much have I changed? How different am I now than I was then? Would I take a different? So I think that every time you edit your work, you're going to pick different images that speak to you. Um, I think that you should do both. I personally think that you should do both. When I did the female fairy tale, I couldn't use anything that I'd done in the past because the dress was my thread
Right.
and my script. So I had to be very intentional. But this is like the big question for you right now, like between now and our next meeting. Like, are you combining images? Are you using old images with new images? Are you writing a new script? What is the thread? Right. So like you could pick, like you just talked about the raven, right? Or it was a vulture, a raven? Okay.
Vulture.
The vulture. So like you can use any symbol as your thread. Like birds could be I mean, right? Um just
Yeah, I'm almost feeling like a call towards like the archetype, like kind of like feeling into what archetype is like wanting to be expressed and then like almost not like narrowing it down, just like I don't know. I think I'm gonna call in the archetype and kind of see what comes up and like what I kind of feel and then start to dissect it to write a script.
okay. So write that down.
Yep.
So archetype, you're talking about like symbols, like bird, crown.
Archetype, I'm talking about like the magician, the lover, the
Okay.
seer, like
Okay.
more like kind of Jungian kind of philosophy where it's like these parts, the stories within us that
Well, it's almost like you're talking about tarot. It's like you're talking about tarot.
totally.
So are you doing like a collection of your own tarot symbol? Like, are you gonna, that could be, I mean, that could be a very, and you could do a tarot reading or just pick 10 cards out of the deck. And then those are the first 10 photos you take. I mean, you can Tiffany, it sounds weird, but you can oversimplify just to keep head on your shoulders. I mean, this is a technique I use all the time. Like, just stop, like, because this person's like out here, no limitations, floating, but this person has to like shoot it, develop it, like, you know, my back hurt, what I mean? This person has to deal with like physical, like stress, like, money and relationships and work. And like, so this simpler you make it for this person to be with that person, right? And so they can mean the better it is. And the more satisfied. So if you actually, and not to say you're lessening or lowering the bar, but just making it like practical, things that are very known to you, that you're comfortable with, that you understand, that you love, right? There's always that thing about love too. Like, I know you love the tarot. I know you love the archetypes. I know you love the magic. Okay. So let's just say like a list of loves, like you love those things, right? I mean, again, that's why the female fairy tale was good for me, because even though I like sometimes hate working so hard at a wedding and the stress and the physical, I also love the love. I love the wedding. I love the ritual and the ceremony and the symbolism, right? So again, that's why the female fairy tale was so easy for me, just to step into that very simple symbol and then make it all the things I wanted to make it, which were more complicated. And in a way, the artist, like, does anybody really understand the artist?
Hmm.
People are only going to take what they can take from your work, and you're going to be able to talk to them about it and describe your intention, but nobody's ever going to know what you know about the process, about why you made it, where it came from, because some of those things are unspeakable. And that's what I was saying, like talking to the flowers and that crazy imagination. And, some of that stuff you can't, it's a gift. It's undefinable. And it's within you and around you. It comes from you. Right. So, but like, so again, it's like kind of like boop, keeping it simple and threading it together. So that's a great idea. Pick 10 cards and then set out to shoot them. Find the people you want to be in the photos, design them. They can be inside, outside. You can make sets. I mean, you like to do all of that.
Yeah, it's kind of reminded me of like Juliet Margaret Cameron a bit too.
Yeah.
Like just kind of like the way that she kind of like brought in that kind of like timeless symbolism that I see relating to the tarot. Okay, I've got some good direction.
Okay, wait, when are we meeting again? Let me get my. Would you want 2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks is good.
Okay. So, so today's the 10th. So, I mean, technically we can do Monday the 23rd.
I'm wide open that day if that works for you.
Yeah, let's do a Monday. I mean, wait, let me just see one thing. I sometimes go to Jamie's on Mondays, but I'm not going on the 23rd. It's all you. Monday the 23rd. Anytime.
Do you want to do 11:30 again?
Yeah, okay, so you understand your homework assignment. So a title, a working title. I'm gonna write this down too. A working title. I want you to do a little bit of reflection backwards. I want you to do some backwards reflection, and I want you to see if there are any pictures that you have that apply to the title, right?
Yeah.
And I want to see them. And I want, set direction or production list or vision list for, the first couple shoots. And I'm not going to tell you that it's that I'm not going to make those decisions for you. Like, I mean, that was just an idea I threw out at you about the tarot, but you have to really want to do that. I mean, again, the archetypes that you were talking about they could be anywhere. It could be Merlin. It could be a character from a movie. It could be The Handmaid's Tale. Like your archetype, like it could be Darth Vader. Like it doesn't matter. Like, you're the artist, right? So you're.
really feeling this like almost overarching like theme of sexuality and then applying the tarot to it in some way.
Mhm.
Um, so I think, yeah, I think that that does really help. And I felt the energy just kind of like opening up as soon as you brought the tarot back in. Cause I did start, and I'll bring it into the next meeting too, but I
So
did.
you keep talking about sex too and porn and stuff. So I'm a little curious, but do you know Tony Ward's work?
Uh-uh.
Okay, so you need to look at Paul Kava and Tony Ward. He's a Philadelphia guy and he's like the king of sex photos. And you could even I don't know where that shit is right. Oh yeah, here.
Wasteland. Oh my God. What? Love it. Oh my God. Yeah, love it.
Ah.
Yes.
So yeah, so I mean, okay, so I'm excited for our next meeting, but oh my God, yeah, and you know Charles Gatewood, right?
No.
Charles Gatewood, he's the guy that I worked for in San Francisco. So he was photographing he was an anthropologist. He was an anthropologist, so he was looking, I mean, Tony's looking at culture and fashion, right? But Charles Gatewood was looking at it from the perspective of an anthropologist, right? About people, weird sex and blood and vampires and piercing, so and Mardi Gras and, so he was looking at it culture, social culture science, like why do people act like this? What if, yeah. I mean, right?
So good.
Right. Yeah. So Charles Gatewood and Tony Ward,
Love it.
um, Paulo Reversi. I mean, there's other people you should probably be looking at. Um,
Yay.
okay. All right.
Okay. I've got
Cool.
my
Cool.
homework.
All right. I'll download this. I'm gonna stop.